Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you today. Missy, I know that you're on Facebook. If you could just let me know that my audio is working, I would appreciate that because I'm hoping to kind of go without headphones, or anybody on YouTube as well. If they could just let me know that my audio is working, uh, then that would be helpful to me. And I guess I'm going to kind of wait for just a minute as a few people are coming on. All right, Missy says it's good. It's such a weird thing to be live and be on the delay in the comments, but I'm happy for that. And so now that I know that's working, thank you, Missy, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And so we are here this morning for a few minutes for a contemplative workshop. I'm super excited to be with you guys. If you're not familiar with those, they're part of our House of Shadows theme this year, which is exploring the shadows of Christ that are in the Old Testament, and we're using that theme as a way of walking through the Christian year. So as we go through kind of this allegorical house in Advent, we went in and we went into the study, and we were met by a character named Ember, who hopefully inflamed us for wanting to grow in our spiritual life, our knowledge and love of God this year. Then we went through Christmas and Epiphany, and then into Lent, which is where we are right now. So in Lent, we had descended down into the cellar. We had a spiritual or a contemplative workshop on prayer and fasting, which we entitled The Furnace, in the hopes that it would warm our heart and our emotions to God throughout the season of Lent. And now are in the very last day of Lent, Maundy, Thursday. The Holy Triduum starts tomorrow. And so I wanted to do this brief workshop on called Loose Board on spiritual procrastination. So as we are in the stairs right now, kind of ascending back up to the main level of the house, sometimes as we get ready to go into this season of these three holy days, with, of course, the big celebration at Easter, and then into a great time of spiritual renewal throughout Eastertide. It can be helpful to reflect on those spiritual practices that we sometimes procrastinate. Of course, we all are used to procrastination in our life. It is a very human thing. And unfortunately, in our spiritual lives, there are things that we sometimes know that we want to be doing, that we want to be working on, but that we are struggling to get started on for some reason. And so today we are going to talk about spiritual procrastination. And so great to have you guys here with me. I am running this whole stream by myself, so I'm going to try to respond to comments as well. Susan, thank you for being here. It's good to have you with us as well. And so now I'm just going to kind of jump right into our workshop on spiritual procrastination. I am going David Holcomb style here with a PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions along the way, please put them into the chat. I'll do my best to respond to them. So, overcoming spiritual procrastination. We are going to go through 7 quick points on some ways that I think could be helpful for me personally, because I do this too, and hopefully all of you, and some things that maybe you've been a little slow in getting started on. It might be daily Bible reading, it might be daily prayer time, it might be service to others, it might be fasting. There's a lot of different spiritual practices and disciplines out there. It's different for all of us. Maybe some of the most common are just prayer and Bible reading, or biblical meditation or scripture journaling, some of these things that we'd like to have in our personal quiet time with God that we kind of struggle to get to. And so we're going to look at these 7 things: finding and focusing on your why, setting simple goals, creating a conducive environment, managing your time, getting started, enjoying the benefits, and remembering to go easy on yourself. And so we're going to jump in to first the why. If you're going to be doing something, it's important to think about why you want to be doing this, especially in terms of procrastination, because it can be helpful to have that focus in mind as a motivation to continue on in your work. And so what might be some of the reasons that you have a why? These are some things that occurred to me that I think are reasons why spiritual growth is important in my life. But it would be beneficial, I think, to think about this yourself as well. Um, Maybe it's to get to know God better, to love God more. That's a phrase that's pretty common here at River Oaks. Gaining wisdom in your life, and maybe it just makes you a more loving spouse, parent, friend, neighbor, coworker, etc. Loving God, loving people. So just thinking about your own spiritual life and the things that you would like to be adding to it that you feel like you're having difficulty doing. Um, why do you want to do those things? Define that, and that can be helpful in then having that in your mind. And of course, that kind of goes hand in hand with setting goals. And for our spiritual life, it's okay to kind of look at it a bit more practically. If you want to, read through the whole Bible in a year, or you want to begin to spend more time in prayer. Pastor Beatty just gave us a great encouragement during this season to spend 5 minutes in prayer every day with another person, if there's someone in your household and you're not alone right now. And so what is that goal? And make a list of what those things are. I would also encourage you that, especially when it comes to procrastination, there's obviously some reason in your mind that is keeping you from getting to this thing. So let's just take Bible reading for an example. Maybe, the goal of reading the whole Bible in a year, break that down into smaller, simpler goals. Start with one book. Hey, I'm going to read one book of the Bible. These are simpler, more attainable things in the short term. I'm going to read, half a chapter a day for 5 days straight if you're somebody who's never read the Bible for 5 days straight. Or I'm going to pray 5 minutes every day for a week if you feel like you're lacking in your prayer life. But start with simple, short-term, attainable goals to kind of get you going, get you in the habit, whether that's journaling or biblical meditation or scripture reading or prayer, whatever these things might be. But don't give yourself such a grand thing that when you start to fall short, you get discouraged on it, because that is part of what lets us fall into the procrastination trap. And also, you could give yourself some accountability. Tell somebody else, tell your spouse, tell a close friend, tell your pastor what you're trying to do, and allow them to follow up with you, not in a heavy-handed way, but the right people in your life who would be good accountability partners, who would be encouraging to you. And so make a short list, keep those things simple and attainable, and tell somebody else about what you're doing, and that can help break down procrastination. The other thing is to have a good environment for what you're going to be doing. So if this is most spiritual practices, I shouldn't say most, but if this is like Bible reading, prayer, journaling, biblical meditation, these are things that really are best done in a solitary environment, in a quiet environment, in a somewhat comfortable environment, if you will. And so you want to make sure that you have a space available for what you're doing. And make sure that you have everything you need before you start. If you know that you're going to need a pen and a paper and a cup of coffee and a clock, because there's a certain time that you're going to need to get away from this in order to get on to the next thing that's on your to-do list, like kind of think ahead about what you have planned so that you have all those things in place. Again, this is specifically talking about tasks that you struggle with, because in procrastination, in our mind, we're looking for that excuse to get away from it. Any sort of distraction, any sort of thing. Oh, I need to go do this. Oh, I need to go do that. Oh, I wish I had that. Now I can't do it because I don't have that. So you're just trying to think ahead, because you're really trying to focus on these things that you're struggling with, that you're procrastinating. And then removing distractions, television, cell phone, iPads, telephones. I mean, we all know, I don't have to tell anybody twice about how distracting all those things are ahead of time. Me personally, something that I do when I go into my study time, if I know I'm going to need my phone or my iPad because I'm going to be doing like a word study, I'm going to be looking up Hebrew words, or maybe I'm going to be looking up Bible maps or something like that, I'll actually ahead of time lock out my iPad, like use a child security feature on it, so that like I only have this one thing open, this browsing window set to the websites that I usually go to for those particular things. And of course I have the password, but I mean, that's one more step that I would have to go through, and it turns off all the other stuff. So when I'm looking at a Bible map, I'm not getting a notification that someone sent me a text or an email or whatever. And so sometimes we have to take an extra step with our devices in order to clear away distractions, because they are helpful as far as getting information for study. If that, it might be actual Bible study is the thing that you're procrastinating. You do okay with your quiet time and your devotion and your meditation, but that actual study, which is just as beneficial, is something that you have a hard time getting to. So removing distractions and being creative. I was thinking of this more in kind of a contemplative space, for your prayer time, for your biblical meditation. If that means some music, some ambient music, if that means some candles, if that means some incense, if that means a particular blanket that's comfortable for you, all of these things, can I think help us, enter into that space of just spending quiet time alone with God and His Scripture, in a way that's very conducive to love. We're allowing Him to love us, and share His presence with us as we're in His Scripture, as we're in prayer. So I think environment is pretty key. Christina Hall. Thank you for being here again. Sorry to kind of pop away for a minute there, but thanks for being with us this morning. And move on to the next slide here. Time management. If we're procrastinating something, one of the things we tell ourselves in the head is that we don't have enough time for it, or we come up with an excuse to do something else. And so we can all identify the time wasters. If your goal is to spend 10 minutes reading scripture or 5 minutes in prayer, or whatever those things are, it can be really helpful to get away from procrastination by simply identifying the things that waste your time. Video games, television, movies, Facebook, so many other things that we can spend too much time on. They're not inherently bad things, but we start doing them. We're doing them for 5 or 10 minutes, and the next thing we've been doing them for an hour or two. And a lot of times while we're doing those things, we're putting off the stuff that we're procrastinating that we know we kind of really want to be doing. So identify what those time wasters are, and then prioritize. Think about your day, think about your routine, And then block regular recurring time in your schedule for this. I think that this is really really key. You set a list, a goal for what you want to do. You set aside some space to do that, and you set aside some time to do that. I think this is really critical and really key, and it's the thing that I think I struggle with the most in my own spiritual life, is really blocking that time in my schedule the same way that I would block it for a video project or something with my kids, or whatever those other things are. Just really blocking that reoccurring time, making it part of your schedule. So time management is key, and then just get started. Jump in. So set that simple, attainable goal. Think about a space, prepare a space for it. Think about a time, block that time, and just jump in and do it. You can do it. You can get it done. Whatever that thing is, that you've set that goal for, that you have a focused reason why you want to do that, how that's going to benefit your walk with God, and just jump in and do it. Get it done. Be encouraged. And then finally, once you've done these things and you have jumped in and you've done it, this thing that you've been putting off, this scripture reading, this prayer time, giving journaling a shot, giving biblical meditation a shot, giving service a shot, all these great, generosity, hospitality, all of these important spiritual disciplines that maybe we just know we should be spending time on, but we're not. Once you've done all that and you've jumped in and you've done it, enjoy the benefits. Really reflect on it. I love the first answer in the Heidelberg Catechism, where the question is, "What is the chief end of man?" And the Heidelberg Catechism is a tool that's used in question and answer format to teach children biblical principles, and adults for that matter. And I love this answer. We've talked about it in church here on Sunday many times. Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And don't miss out on the enjoyment of God. Growing spiritually, doing all of these different practices and disciplines is of great benefit to us. And we can enjoy the presence, and should enjoy the presence of God in the midst of it. And for me personally, when I'm not procrastinating, and I'm really being diligent in my spiritual practices and disciplines, I enjoy a great clarity and patience and assurance of purpose as I go through the day, which is essentially less stress. To be able to go through the day in a patient, love-filled way, understanding that because I am walking closely with the Lord, I can be assured that He will fulfill His purpose for my life, which is a scriptural truth and a scriptural promise that He will fulfill His purpose for our life. And so as we go through the day, if we're walking closely with Him, we can enjoy that assurance and feel a lot less stressed about everything that's going on. And then remember those feelings and let them motivate you to continue in your spiritual growth. The thing that gets me out of bed every morning, when I don't procrastinate, because sometimes I do, but the thing that gets me out of bed every morning into my quiet time, where I read scripture, do biblical meditation and prayer, is the beautiful sense of the presence of God I feel in that moment. And it is the best moment of the day, and it carries on throughout the day. And I know when I skip or procrastinate doing some of those things, like, I'm off a little bit, and so I can reflect on that and use that as motivation. That when I want to procrastinate, I want to do something else instead, play video games, fool around on YouTube, whatever, that I can remember. But if I go and do this instead, I'm going to feel this great sense of stronger connection with God, And I just and that can be a good motivator to get us through procrastination as well. So remembering the benefits, using that as motivation, and also remembering the why, the first thing that we talked about, why are these spiritual disciplines important to you, I think are both things that can be great um, in motivating us and helping get rid of procrastination. And then finally, in the midst of whatever these things are that you're working on, don't be too hard on yourself. You will. I'll tell you right now, there will be times that you'll forget, that you'll skip, or that you'll make a choice to do something else instead. We all do it all the time. People who work in the church, pastors, people that we look up to as like, kind of more spiritually mature people, like they do this too. None of us are alone. We're all human. And you know what? Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't get discouraged to where you give up on whatever that particular goal was for that spiritual practice. And it reminds me of Psalm 86:15. This is one of my favorite verses. But you, O Lord, are a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. And I think the one way to sum that up is just that God is patient with us. And so we will make mistakes and fall short, but he's not going to give up on us. And so we shouldn't give up on growing closer to him just because we slip up or skip or, kind of, just ignore those spiritual disciplines and practices sometimes. I know that we all do it. And so, just to recap then, those spiritual practices and disciplines that you're finding a really hard time getting started on, these are some tips that might help you get started. Find and focus on your why. Remember why you're trying to do these things. Why is spiritual growth important to you? And focus on that. And set simple goals. Don't make it so grand. You want to get better at prayer, like don't say, hey, I'm going to, pray for an hour every day. Start with a smaller amount of time. Start with maybe even every other day. But if you're not praying at all, I would suggest the goal would be every day, multiple times a day either. But you don't just feel like you need to jump into that. I don't pray at all right now. Now I want to pray 5 times a day every day. Start with simpler goals that are more attainable. Set aside a good space, conducive environment, manage your time, block that time out to do it, jump in, get started, and then enjoy the benefits, and don't be too hard on yourself when you miss one or two. And so those would be some tips that have been helpful to me in my own spiritual growth life and things that I've struggled with. And I hope that they are helpful for you as well. And I guess I would just like to give a quick second for any questions or thoughts anybody might have before we wrap up. And since I'm on a little bit of a delay to respond to the chat, I'll just remind you while you're thinking of a question, tomorrow at 6:30 live stream Monday, Thursday service. Friday live stream prayer hours 12 to 3. So this is going to be kind of a contemplative virtual environment that you can just pop in and out of for maybe 5-10 minutes. I'll create kind of a nice visual and audio experience that will be showing the words of Jesus while he was on the cross that we find in Scripture. So just kind of a meditative moment for you anytime within that 3-hour period. And then on Sunday, of course, the most joyous day of the year. It is Resurrection Sunday. It is Easter, 10 a.m. live stream on those things. And it looks like there's probably not any questions at the moment. Does anybody just want to type in and say hi? We've got. I'm sorry, I didn't see these YouTube ones. Dan, hey, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Yeah, I'm working on the YouTuber. You're talking about YouTube as a distraction. Yeah, I feel you there, brother. That's yeah. And we've got a young mage, Phil. Hey, man, how's it going? Good to see you guys. I'll just give kind of a bit of a comment just to you too. I don't know how I was missing that one on YouTube. I apologize, but I guess just for these last few minutes, if anybody just wants to say hi or shout out, since we're all in in isolation right now, even here at the church, like I'm at the church right now, but I'm the only person in this giant space. There's maybe a couple people in the office, but we're all like separated apart, and so even coming into the office is strange because it's just very quiet and that. So everybody doing okay out there? Everybody hanging in there in our this kind of weird space that we're in. Anybody have any prayer requests? I'd be happy to pray for or with anybody. Brian Edmonds is over here on Facebook. Hey Brian, thanks for popping in. Brian's always so helpful. Well, it has been fantastic to be with you guys. And I am going to go ahead and cut this stream, and we'll catch up with you online tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. for Monday, Thursday. Looking forward to it. Love you all. God bless.